Hi guys, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon was interviewed by Sophie Ridge of Sky News on Sunday about the prospect of Liz Truss becoming the next Prime Minister. Now, Sturgeon said that if Truss becomes Prime Minister in the same way as she has campaigned, then the Premier will be a disaster for the United Kingdom. They also talked about a new plan by the Tories to try and make it more difficult for Scotland to gain independence. Have a listen to what she had to say.
It's obviously the case that Liz Truss and I don't agree on very much politically, but I'm a firm believer in giving anybody who's coming into the office of Prime Minister a chance to prove themselves, and I will certainly do my best to build a constructive working relationship with her. Remember, she will be, if it is indeed Liz Truss tomorrow, she will be the fourth Prime Minister that I've had to deal with in my time as First Minister, and despite my differences with David Cameron, Theresa May, perhaps less so with Boris Johnson, but it wasn't for the want of trying, I've managed to have decent working relationships, and I'll certainly try to do that with Liz Truss as well. I think everybody will want to see what she is going to do. She faces, as all of us do right now, immense challenges. I hope the very first thing she does in office is cancel the looming increase in energy prices, the increase in the energy price cap, and deliver some very substantial help to individuals and businesses. The one thing I would say is that if she governs as she has campaigned over the summer, she will be a disaster, not just for Scotland but for all of the UK. But let's hope that's not the case, because this is a very serious time for the UK and it needs very serious and very purposeful leadership.
You say if she governs as she has campaigned, she will be a disaster. Why do you think that?
Well, because she has campaigned on the very, how can I say this politely, niche priorities of 100,000 members of the Conservative Party, focusing on things like tax cuts that would benefit the very richest, when it is ordinary people across the country who desperately need help to feed their children and heat their homes. There's been a focus on what the Conservatives would describe as woke politics, rhetoric that looks as if it is rowing back on the moral obligation we all have to tackle the climate emergency, which as
Now, I actually have a little bit of a disagreement here with Nicola Sturgeon. I don't think it's the niche of the Conservative Party supporters. It's actually the niche within the niche, the likes of the ERG. And I've been saying this for a while. I believe that Liz Truss is under the thumb of the ERG, the European Research Group, the Jacob Rees-Moggs of this world, the Brexit hardman Steve Bakers of this world, people who want small government. People who don't want an administration telling people what to do or providing them with support. They want, and I believe this, they want just to have a smaller government that has low taxation, and the low taxation, of course, is to benefit rich companies and very rich individuals in the United Kingdom. People who want to avoid paying taxes. No better solution for them is to have a government that doesn't tax them. And what we're hearing from Liz Truss at the moment is, well, she's going to deal with this cost of living crisis by cutting taxes. And those tax cuts will, of course, help people who earn significant amounts of money. It's not going to help people at the lower end of the scale. Those, of course, being the people that really need support. Now, they also talked a little bit about Scottish independence and a second referendum. And there's talk that the Conservatives want to throw as many obstacles in the way of Scottish independence as possible.
Let's talk a bit. You mentioned there about, as you put it, gerrymandering the rules. This is the reports in the Sunday Times that the Truss team want to introduce a new law that would mean a referendum could only take place. So if a referendum takes place, at least 50% of Scotland's entire electorate would have to vote to leave the union for it to happen. So in other words, not a simple majority as we've seen in the EU referendum or in the previous referendum. For something as significant as breaking away from the union, is that something that you would accept?
No, because it is a changing of the basic rules of democracy that we have all abided by for our entire lifetimes and long before that. Can you imagine the furore the literal foaming at the mouth that we would have had from the Conservative Party if MD had suggested that for the Brexit referendum. You cannot, just because you fear losing a democratic contest, it's not an excuse or doesn't make it acceptable to try to rewrite the rules of democracy. That's my point here. There has never been a positive case for the union made by those who put forward that case. In 2014, they tried and got away with it in 2014 to scare people in Scotland. I remember back then there was all sorts of scare stories about all sorts of things, but including that our energy bills would go up
rather
if we
than
voted
getting too
for independence.
involved into
Okay, and then they have a bit of a back and forth, and I leave a link to this video in the description. I do recommend checking it out. Now, I actually once again disagree slightly with Nicola Sturgeon. Yes, I agree that this is surely a case of moving the goalposts, and maybe I'm not actually disagreeing when I respond in this way. What I'm saying is this may actually help independence, because if the Scottish people believe that the Tories and the Westminster government is throwing more and more obstacles in the way of Scottish independence, it may actually encourage people who are sitting on the fence to join the yes movement, or at least vote yes in the referendum. So on the Tory side, they may think, oh, we're actually going to make it more difficult for Scottish people to vote, or at least to vote for independence, because we're going to increase the threshold in order to have a valid referendum. Of course, this was not the case when it came to Brexit, but by doing this, it's actually going to piss off a lot of Scottish people. And maybe some of them who are sitting on the fence, not sure whether they would vote for the union or vote for independence. And seeing things like this, these types of dirty tricks and these types of tactics, it may actually encourage people to come out and vote for independence. Now, of course, Sturgeon is completely correct here. This is a case of moving the goalposts because the unionists believe that they will lose. I've said this before. If you believe the union is strong, you would be fully supportive of a second referendum. And in the same case in Northern Ireland, unionists in Northern Ireland are dead set against a border vote. If they believed that the union was strong, then they would be fully supportive of that. In Northern Ireland, as in Scotland, unionists are afraid. They're afraid that the union is breaking up. And I've said for years that Brexit has been a massive catalyst here. And instead of accepting that, what they're doing is they're trying to throw as many obstacles in the way of a referendum in Scotland as this is the case. It won't work. And as I said, it may actually encourage people who are in doubt to come down on the side of independence. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.